they do, and is it grounded in real life? I would assume yes, but by the same token, there's degrees to everything. And could you have, like, let me ask you this: are there any complaints you guys have with Geass that aren't derived entirely from your perspective of life?
Besides Suzaku being a fucking moron.
But that's from your perspective on life and logic, because of him acting that way is not the way that a logical human being would act, especially when they like. I wouldn't be like, oh, okay. As much as I hate Sasuke did everything because he was like, I have to kill my brother, so I have to stay alive. It's not like Sasuke was like, I have to kill my brother, let me go on ahead and run to my death. That wouldn't make sense.
That is true. That is very true.
His morals conflict constantly. That's the thing about Sasuke.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think I can think of anything off the top of my head. There may be something that maybe perhaps I criticize outside of like my own, but I think it's to the point that we wouldn't know that, because if it's based off of everything that we have of our life experience, right, and that I criticize Suzaku for that, I think that I may not, or you not, or I don't know if it applies to everyone, but I don't think a person who's criticizing something will criticize something that they're not aware of. Like,
I don't think it's possible to critique something that
you don't know about.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I'm like, maybe there is that stuff, but we wouldn't be aware of it because we wouldn't have the knowledge to know about it. So, if, like, for example, how do I best translate it to? Okay, this is the best way I could translate, just from a gaming perspective. One of the things I think, and I know we talked about this in H&M text about, one of the things I noticed when Mafia 3 came out was that, and this was someone brought up, someone like Angry Joe and some other people, they never brought up how the world was in compared to how it treated Lincoln Clay as a black man. It was like straight away from a lot of reviews, and a lot of people felt that was, and we felt, and a lot of others did feel that was the most powerful thing. And I really thought about it for a while, and I think that was wise, because they don't have the experience of that. So they wouldn't say anything about it because they don't, there's nothing that they connect to, like, this doesn't make logical sense or something like that. But it's really like, or I don't think this is right or wrong, because they just have no knowledge or no experience of it at all. So I guess it becomes the question of, do they intentionally stray away from it, or is it subconsciously done because you just don't have experience? That's why I think it's a tricky area, because it's like, I can't answer that question for you, DX, because I don't know if there is in fact a bias of some aspect in Code Geass or any anime that I just don't have the knowledge to say this doesn't make sense to me at all, because maybe you might look at it and say, hey, this doesn't make sense to me because in my experience A, B, and C, and D, but in my experience I might have never experienced that before, or I might have had a different experience than some other people might not. I mean, I think this is just the foundation of just why some people be like, they'll say, oh, I enjoy X, Y, and Z for this reason, and then you look at it like, what? Like, no, like I think of it like this. Someone will enjoy Naruto or enjoy an anime or something like that I might not like because of how the presentation or how the fighting or a certain aspect of it that in my viewpoint I think is minuscule, or I think is irrelevant to the main to the main enjoyment, because I think it comes down to enjoyment at the end of the day, I guess. And I think us as critics a lot of times, and I'm speaking this from personal experience, I'm not even speaking this from you, I'm saying from my own personal experience, I think a lot of times we get so downtrodden with critiquing everything. I don't know if you feel this way, DX, but since I started deep analyzing video games, I can say for the past 2 years I have never really played a game for its enjoyment anymore. Like, everything to me now playing it is every time I play a game, all I can see when playing games is the mechanics and how they function. Like, I can see the bones of the system, and I think that's how you probably are anime. Like, when you watch something, right? I think you can see what I can see. Like, you can see what very few people can see, and you can see how the plot progresses and how the characters are evolving or how they're not, or you can see blatant flaws that a lot of other people wouldn't, because they're just seeing the boom boom explosion, the fun stuff, and they're just like, yeah, this looks great, or oh, that's a great line, or I love that little cut, or something like that. So I don't know. I guess to answer your question, also and to throw it back to you, is do you ever feel like that sometimes hurts you when it comes to like watching it? Like do you feel like that's why you're very critical and like you give things like 1? Because like a lot of people will disagree and say I wouldn't give this a 1 out of 10, or 1 out of 10 is like very outlandish or something crazy, like a crazy score to give the show because it still has this, and this. But you might rate it and say, well, I don't, that stuff's not as important if this, and this aren't there or something like that. So do you, like, how do you feel about that? Like, do you feel like it's just to the point where like you've seen so much shit and you're able to break a lot of shit down to the point that you can't just watch it or see it just for like what people may like criticize you and say, oh, it's just you're just hating or you can't have fun with it? Do you think it's like it's just that you just evolved to that point, or do you think like you're able to like say, oh, I can just watch this anime and just enjoy it for what it is? Or do you feel like you have to watch it and break it down to figure out like where it does good and where it fails? I guess that's what I'm getting at. I don't know if you need me to rephrase anything I'm saying, because I went crazy.
I think I've struck a perfect balance with critique and enjoyment of a particular series. This goes into the favorite versus the best discussion, I believe, where I have a list of games and anime that I consider to be my favorites, but do I necessarily consider those works to be of great quality? The answer is usually no. For all my shit talking of Fear 2, I don't like Fear 2, but I can tell you from a critical standpoint that it's at least a good game. It's not a horrendous game. The same goes for Code Geass Akito the Exiled. It has Code Geass in the name. It's about Code Geass. I thought it was an average work, but I did at least enjoy it more than I enjoyed Lelouch of the Rebellion. Someone asked me on my Mal page recently why I have Standalone Complex in my favorites when I only gave it a 5 out of 10. And that's because I really enjoyed Standalone Complex. I just don't believe the writing to be as great as, your Evangelions. See, those are two separate categories for me, and when I'm watching something, yeah, sure, I'll pick up on those problems, but I'm watching a story to be entertained at the end of the day. So if entertainment will not, the level of entertainment will not affect
how you can objectively feel about it.
How you objectively feel about
it. How I objective is a, like, I hate using that word now, but it's, I guess, yeah, objectively critically
I know what you're saying.
feel about it.
Yeah.
And how I critically feel about something isn't going to affect my enjoyment of it. Like I said, Fear 2, I hated playing through that game, but I can't sit here and tell you that it's a bad game. The same goes for a few other games. And this is just a very base example. Unreal Tournament 3 is not as good a game as the original Unreal Tournament by any stretch of the imagination, but do I enjoy playing it a lot? Yeah, I do. So when I watch a series, I don't expressly look for plot elements or narrative elements or whatever. It's just something in the back of my mind whenever I'm watching a series. I try, because I legitimately only watch series and play games just for entertainment. And if it goes to the point where something is blatantly bullshit in either medium, that's when I kind of either start remembering all the things that were wrong with it that I picked up on subconsciously, or I go back and I watch something. Because, like, I can't fathom that. Like, why would I watch things just to hate them? Like, that doesn't... Why would I waste...
Yeah, and some of your critics, that's what they believe. They believe that you fundamentally just... Either you do it for shock value, or... And I guess this is more like a vindication, because I just want people to understand the mindset of you, so, like, people can understand why, like, wow, you're just fucking hating on it, like, you fucking do a whole series about hate. But I think a lot of people, they don't understand from a critic standpoint, like, what you're doing or why you're doing it. So, I guess that, yeah, that's why I agree, and I think that's the thing that I think a lot of people need to be more understanding about, especially with, like, when it comes to you. Because I feel like, what we do here is not done on the internet at all. I feel like the conversations that need to be happening, like, I find the thing irritating. I'm working on a whole thing, like, where I'm pretty much done with reviews. I'm working on a very in-depth, like, like breakdown about why I'm starting to like dislike the whole culture of like reviewing and how people discuss shit. And I think the problem is that people don't try to understand the person who's like saying the certain things. They go with absolutes. So they'll argue with you like what you're saying. Like a lot of the comments you'll post is like they'll argue with you very basic, either insults or just basic retorts that it just come up to, oh, this is horrible, this is trash, or they'll use basic terminology to describe something like it's horrible, but they'll never explain why. And I feel like people don't explain why because either A, they don't have the mental capacity to be able to explain why, or B, they don't. They're just trying to anger. They're doing it for the sake of angering you instead of explaining why. Yeah, and they just want a reaction out of you. And I had to learn that the hard way. It's like people just like a reaction out of you compared to actually pushing forward like a narrative discussion about why certain people, why we feel the certain ways we do about certain things. And I think like that's when we can sit down like this, I feel like people can figure out different ways and learn different things. Like what Anon says, it's like, and I said this to you about what the fuck was it? Fucking Mirai Nikki. Like when I first watched it, I thought it was like, it's decent, it's like a 6, 7. Then when I watched your video and I saw some good points, it wasn't like, because I enjoyed it, I didn't immediately go into your video like, I'm a fucking hate this. I think that's what a lot of people do. Once they see your title, anime I fucking hate, they go into it like with already a hating attitude towards what they're about to view.